Imagine waking up one morning and sensing immediately that something vital has shifted, not in the world itself, but in the way people think. You walk outside, scroll through your phone, listen to conversations, and it feels as though minds that once questioned and probed now echo the same ideas, the same reactions, the same surface-level judgments. There is noise everywhere, but understanding feels scarce. Opinions rush in from every direction, hot takes, breaking stories, emotional reflexes, and yet something is missing beneath the sound. The power of independent thought that once defined individuals now seems dulled, crowded out by constant distraction and collective agreement. Ask yourself this: what happens when thinking deeply becomes optional, when questioning feels dangerous, when reflection dissolves into reaction? What happens when humans no longer think for themselves, but simply adopt whatever narrative feels easiest in the moment? This is not just a casual observation, it is a psychological phenomenon that some scholars now call collective stupidity, a condition where masses of people stop critically examining ideas, stop challenging assumptions, and surrender their intellectual independence while believing they are more informed than ever. And by the end of this journey, one truth will become impossible to ignore, one that forces you to confront whether you will reclaim your mind or allow it to be shaped without awareness by forces designed to capture your attention, your beliefs, and your very identity. Let's begin with something few people want to admit: true thinking is difficult. Real thinking requires effort, patience, and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions. It demands that you sit with uncertainty, that you face information that contradicts your cherished beliefs, and that you tolerate the discomfort of not knowing. In today's world, these qualities are rarely rewarded. Speed is rewarded. Instant reactions are rewarded. Confident certainty is rewarded, even when it is hollow. The modern environment, especially the digital environment, encourages immediacy, distraction, and emotional response. Algorithms are engineered to keep you engaged, not to help you understand. Educational systems often emphasize memorization over exploration. Social circles encourage conformity over dissent. In such a world, genuinely independent thought feels almost like rebellion. Decades ago, thinkers like Noam Chomsky warned about the manufacturing of consent, the idea that power structures thrive when populations are conditioned to accept narratives without questioning them. When people stop asking why and start repeating popular slogans, they become easy to influence and even easier to control. Critical thinking, which used to be seen as a cornerstone of human progress, now feels inconvenient and out of step with the rhythm of modern life. It slows conversation. It interrupts certainty. It dares to ask the dangerous question: is this actually true? But in a culture obsessed with being right and being heard, asking a question can feel like an act of defiance. One of the biggest drivers of this decline is the overload of information. Every day, your brain is bombarded with headlines, alerts, ads, notifications, opinions, and headlines. The human brain was never designed to process this magnitude of input continuously. When the mind is overwhelmed, it seeks shortcuts. Instead of evaluating ideas carefully, it relies on instinctive cues, mental habits, and social signals. If an idea appears in 100 places, repeated by friends, shared widely, or endorsed by influencers, the brain whispers, "This must be true." But that is not reasoning. That is survival instinct being hijacked by volume. This shortcut mentality is part of what allows collective stupidity to spread. People do not stop thinking because they are incapable of intelligence. They stop thinking because thinking has become too effortful and too socially risky. Another contributing force is the collapse of sustained attention. We skim instead of read. We glance instead of engage. We jump between topics without settling into the deep focus that critical thinking requires. Long-form reading is increasingly rare. Yet you cannot analyze what you barely engage with, and you cannot reflect when your attention is fractured. Ask yourself, when was the last time you read a challenging article from beginning to end without checking your phone? When was the last time you paused after hearing something provocative and actually thought about it, instead of reacting immediately? These habits, once common, are now vanishing, and with them, the mental muscles required for deep thought atrophy. The great thinker Carl Sagan warned that we live in a society profoundly dependent on science and technology, yet increasingly ignorant of both and incapable of questioning the systems that shape our lives. But technology is only part of the story. There is also an emotional component. Critical thinking is uncomfortable. It forces us to face the possibility that we might be wrong. It challenges our identities, our ties to social groups, and our sense of certainty. In a culture that prizes confidence and belonging above all, this discomfort feels threatening. So instead of thinking, many people defend. They retreat into familiar tribes, repeat easy slogans, and cling to simplified narratives that offer emotional safety. Dialogue becomes performance. Curiosity is replaced by certainty. Mental laziness is embraced as efficiency. The consequences of this shift are profound. When people stop thinking, they stop questioning authority and become increasingly vulnerable to manipulation, fear, and control. The crucial question then becomes, who benefits when a population no longer thinks for itself? To understand how deeply this conditioning runs, consider the systems that shape us from childhood. Schools, in many cases, do not prioritize independent thought. Students are often rewarded for memorization, compliance, and correct answers, but not for challenging assumptions or exploring original ideas. Curiosity is sometimes treated as a distraction, and conformity is reinforced as discipline. Over time, children learn that thinking differently carries risks. This pattern doesn't end with formal schooling. In workplaces, media environments, and social circles, questioning the dominant narrative can invite exclusion, ridicule, or backlash. The fear of being labeled controversial, difficult, or out of touch silences many before they even speak. Over time, silence becomes habit, habit becomes identity. Psychologists have observed that many people unconsciously desire to escape the burden of thinking. To think independently carries responsibility. It means you can no longer blame others for your beliefs. You must stand alone at times, face uncertainty, and accept that not every question has a neat answer. That burden feels heavy, and comfort is easier, distraction is easier, simplicity is easier. So people choose what feels safe over what is true. Social media has accelerated this tendency immensely. Platforms are designed to keep you scrolling, reacting, and consuming. The more emotional your response, the more engagement you generate, and the more the system rewards you. Thoughtful analysis seldom gets traction in the rapid-fire world of feeds and timelines. Outrage spreads faster than nuance. Certainty spreads faster than doubt. In this environment, reason begins to feel slow, weak, and irrelevant. Truth becomes less important than virality. Popularity becomes a substitute for merit. This is the tyranny of popularity, not enforced by laws, but by psychology. So what can we do? The antidote to collective stupidity is not more information, it is better thinking. And better thinking begins with better questions. Who is telling me this? Why should I believe it? What assumptions am I making? What evidence am I ignoring because it threatens my identity? How often do I seek understanding rather than validation? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Because critical thinking requires courage. Courage to admit ignorance. Courage to revise beliefs. Courage to be wrong. Socrates understood this. He said that true wisdom begins with knowing how little you know. Yet today, humility is rare. Everyone wants to speak. Few want to listen. Everyone wants certainty. Few want understanding. True thinkers are often quiet, not because they lack confidence, but because they respect complexity. And once you surrender the ability to think independently, you surrender your freedom. You become reactive, programmable, predictable. The forces that benefit from this state are not abstract. They are economic, political, and cultural. But the moment you reclaim your mind, everything changes. You become harder to deceive. You start seeing patterns instead of headlines, structures instead of slogans. You move from consuming ideas to examining them. And this act, however small it may seem, has always been the spark of real transformation. To understand why people are so easily influenced, we must look inside the brain itself. Despite our belief in logic, humans are profoundly emotional creatures. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman showed that the brain operates using two systems, one fast and instinctive, and one slow and deliberate. The fast system is automatic, emotional, and quick to judge. The slow system, the one responsible for reflection and analysis, requires effort and time. In a world that prioritizes speed over depth, most people remain in fast mode. This makes us vulnerable to cognitive biases, especially confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that confirms what we already believe. Once a belief takes hold, the brain defends it fiercely, often ignoring contradictory evidence. Groupthink intensifies this dynamic, as the desire for harmony or acceptance suppresses dissent. History shows that entire societies can make devastating decisions when doubt is stifled and conformity reigns. Progress, on the other hand, has always come from those willing to think differently, from individuals who dared to challenge assumptions even when it was unpopular, risky, or dangerous. Galileo, Darwin, Nietzsche, Martin Luther King, they were rejected, ridiculed, and opposed, yet they persisted. Why? Because they valued truth over acceptance, inquiry over conformity. Critical thinking is not merely a skill, it is an act of courage. It often brings loneliness, resistance, and misunderstanding. But it also brings clarity, self-respect, and integrity. So why do so many people feel anxious, empty, or unfulfilled despite living in an age of unprecedented information and connectivity? Because information without reflection is noise. One of the greatest losses of our time is the habit of inner dialogue, the ability to sit alone with a question, explore it thoroughly, and allow truth to emerge through reflection. We have outsourced our thinking to algorithms, feeds, and collective shorthand. But no algorithm can tell you what is true for you. No trending topic can replace your inner voice. No mass movement can substitute for the quiet certainty that comes from examined beliefs. The way forward begins with awareness, awareness of your mental habits, awareness of when you are reacting instead of thinking, awareness of the forces that shape your attention and perception. Practice metacognition, thinking about your thinking. Ask yourself what influences your opinions. Are you open to being wrong? Are you engaging with ideas or simply absorbing them passively? Learn to hold opposing ideas in tension without racing to resolve them. Read deeply. Listen carefully. Resist the urge for easy answers. Critical thinking is not something you acquire overnight, it is a discipline, a practice, a commitment. Now we arrive at the core truth. Critical thinking is disappearing not because people are incapable of it, but because many are afraid of what it might reveal. To think deeply is to risk identity. It challenges certainty. It forces you to confront your own biases, fears, and vulnerabilities. In a culture where identity is tightly bound to beliefs, questioning them feels like losing part of yourself. But you are not your opinions. You are not your social group. You are not your ideologies. You are a thinking being with the capacity to grow, adapt, and change. The deepest truth is this: critical thinking is not just an intellectual skill, it is an existential act. It is the choice of truth over comfort, awareness over approval, freedom over validation. When you begin to think critically, you start seeing the systems that surround you, the narratives designed to captivate you, the incentives that shape discourse, the invisible pressures that guide consensus. And that can be uncomfortable. It can even be painful. But only reality, no matter how uncomfortable, can anchor true freedom. Carl Jung once said that people will do anything to avoid facing their inner world, their unconscious motives, and their own beliefs. Yet facing those things is the essence of thinking. Critical thinking is not just about questioning the external world, it is about interrogating yourself. Why do you believe what you believe? Where did that idea originate? What are you afraid to let go of? When you ask those questions honestly, a new world opens, not just a world of knowledge, but a world of wisdom. Wisdom is what society is starving for. In a culture addicted to quick answers, wisdom invites deeper questions. In a system built on noise, wisdom offers silence. In an era of conformity, wisdom dares to be free. This is your invitation, not to be louder, not to be more aggressive, not to conform to popular opinion, but to think. To wake up. To stop being a product of your environment and start becoming the architect of your own mind. No school, no social platform, no media feed will do this for you. The responsibility is yours. And when you rise to it, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see with clarity. You begin to distinguish between manipulation and truth, between education and indoctrination, between connection and performance. You begin to lead not with noise, not with ego, but with depth. You become a calm voice in a storm of reaction. A grounded thinker in a world of reflexive judgments. This is what the world needs now more than ever, not louder voices, not sharper arguments, but deeper minds. Minds willing to sit with complexity. Minds willing to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Minds not seeking to win debates, but to understand reality. If you want to change the world, start by changing the way you think. Not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because it is right. The rise of collective stupidity is not an inevitable future, it is a symptom of fear, distraction, and resistance to the inner work of thought. Every time you pause instead of reacting, every time you ask a question instead of assuming the answer, every time you choose clarity over comfort, you reclaim your power. And so, as this journey comes to an end, remember this: the most revolutionary thing you can do right now is not to shout, not to conform, not to repeat what everyone else says, but to think. Let others sleepwalk through slogans and screens if they choose. You don't have to, you are awake now, and once you awaken, there is no going back. Stay curious, stay awake, above all, keep thinking.